Everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today I made Eric watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, of course the second in the current reboot Planet of the Apes franchise. And is this the most recent movie that we've done on this series? Because we tend, of course, to go to
because Nice Guys was
just last year. That's right, and that was the first of these we did. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I decided to go ahead and do this, and this is one of those sort of choices by committee, even though I made Eric watch.
This will be like
this movie,
like a duology kind of a thing, because next we'll be watching Prometheus, because that's coming out
in anticipation of Alien Covenant.
Because you've not seen Prometheus.
And Eric surprisingly had not seen this.
Yeah,
and,
no, why?
And you saw Rise and liked it.
I liked Rise, and I liked the original films. I think I actually get you to watch the original film.
You did, and I felt like a complete idiot. It's now one of my favorite science fiction films of all time, as it is, of course, many people's. I've only watched it the one time, and I won't speak to it very much talking about this, because I don't feel remotely qualified to talk about the original much until I've seen it again.
Yeah, there was just one day where we were...
It would be a lot of fun to sit down and do a written analysis of that thing,
oh,
but
yeah.
That is a very I'm not worthy kind of movie for me.
Yeah, there was just a day where we were talking, and you were like, I don't need to see that. I know the ending, and I'm like, no, you need to see it.
Like, that is one of those I should have grown up with that movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Kind of movies, and I don't know if you know this, but I watched that the same day I watched Rise the first time. So I watched it in the morning. I watched Rise in the afternoon because I wanted to see Dawn. I'd seen commercials. I was curious about it, and I had never touched Planet of the Apes before that day.
Oh,
so I saw those three movies in the same day. So the first time I watched this was the same day I watched the original Planet of the Apes. And, but, like, that, I think, you know, if you see that movie for the first time and you think it's as brilliant as I did, it's amazing how well these hold up to that.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
If you watch the original Planet and these are good, they're doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes quite a bit. I ended up not seeing this in theaters. Like, I just didn't have money when it was in theaters, and then I just never got around to seeing it.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was a good day.
Yeah,
that day when I did that, oh boy, that was a good day. So Eric, I cannot wait to hear your read on this movie. So as we traditionally do on this show, we'll let Eric, since he saw this for the first time, tell us a little bit about this, and then tell us what he thinks about it.
No, you have to give this.
Oh, do I have to give this summary? But we haven't done this in so long. Okay, so in the last film, we found out that there was a virus in the mid-credits, and boy, that's one of those movies where if you walked out...
Is there a mid-credits scene on this one?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
If you walked out, you missed the most important thing. And I'm sure people did that, but there's a virus that is set up earlier in the film that ends up wiping out, we find out at the beginning of this, a lot of the population, and a lot more of the population is wiped out by infighting and riots and things that happen, and this is set in San Francisco, right outside of there.
Which is where the first film was set.
Which is where the first film was set, and because that's where Caesar takes his people, and they all go off at the end of that movie into the jungle. And so we flash forward several years. And are we ambiguous about how many years it is? I don't think they give us a timestamp. It's got to be at least 20, 15 or 20, I would think.
You think
somewhere
so?
Between 10 and 20. Well, we need enough time for the history of the settlement to happen, because they talk like several years ago they lost power and horrible things happened.
But a lot of these people are rather young, and they talk about losing family to the virus.
Yeah, well, and
like the main guy and the main chick both talk about, like, he lost his wife, she lost
yeah, but they're at
kid.
least in their mid-30s or 40s. They could they could have been early 20s. Well, that's true. Yeah, so I'm not sure how much time has passed.
I think maybe 10 years.
And again, I might have missed a timestamp. I also don't know how long it takes apes to reach adolescence.
Yeah,
like I don't know how old Caesar's kid is.
Yeah,
and they've just had another one.
And I don't know how old Caesar is.
Yeah. So anyway, so some years have passed, and we were seeing the beginnings of the ape culture developing. We see that they have developed a set of rules for themselves, kind of a code, the main thing of which, of course, is that apes are not supposed to kill apes, and you have the human settlement that is in danger of losing power, and so they have to go to the dam and try to get that started up again. But unfortunately, the apes are in the middle of the dam, and they have to venture into their territory in order to do that. And the apes and humans, of course, aren't getting along for lots of different reasons. Some of the humans kind of blame the apes for the virus because it was a simian virus, and the apes see the way that the humans have destroyed themselves, and they don't trust them. And the whole thing ends up boiling down to a kind of a discussion of, and it is very Professor X Magneto, between Koba and Caesar, of whether or not we should try to trust, we should trust the humans. And they both come from different backgrounds. One of them who had a good relationship with some humans, of course, from the first film, and Koba, who was experimented on and abused, and was just the worst kind of lab monkey ever. And so the worst thing that could happen to a lab animal happened to him. I really love that scene where he says, human work, human work, human work.
Yeah.
And anyway, so the war that we'll see in the next film is started by Koba inciting violence, intentionally trying to make it look like the humans killed Caesar, but of course he survives and comes back at the end to take his people back over again. And one of the most interesting choices, I think, in the movie, and of course, full-blown spoilers, one of the most interesting things in the movie, I think, is Caesar's decision to go ahead and kill Koba.
Yeah.
To drop him at the end.
Yeah. Where he refers to him as you're
not an ape. Yeah.
Which is almost like you're not really a human being kind of a thing.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And there's this discussion about how much we have in common, the apes and the humans have in common, and that suggests that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that there's a lot of, bad in it as well, of course. Two sides to every person. So anyway, how did you feel about this?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I can just flip. I'm feeling it. It's really good. It was interesting because based on things I'd seen in the trailers, which now 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long. But
there were things I assumed about the movie that aren't true. I assumed that Gary Oldman was the bad guy, and he's not really.
Well, he's not on the right side by the end, certainly.
But we understand his side. Like,
he's not an unsympathetic antagonist, but he's sort of... There is a parallel that is drawn between him and Koba, but he's not as extreme. Certainly. Remember, he wants to go to war from the very beginning.
No, he doesn't. It's an option he's willing to go to. He is not like Koba.
No, he's not insisting that's what we have. Yeah.
He lets the main guy go up there by himself and try and deal with it. He's not unreasonable.
But it is the first... No, he's not unreasonable, but it's the first thing he goes to, and we feel the need to make sure that we give a little bit of background with him, that he lost family and stuff, so that we'll buy that he's quicker to violence than...
But he's not the villain, at least in the way I thought he would be.
Sure.
Based on the trailers. I thought he was the bad guy. I think he's a little...
No, he's not the guy who brings guns on purpose and makes the whole thing get started in the first place, yeah.
If I had any complaint against this movie, I think he's a little underused. I don't know why it needs to be Gary Oldman.
I thought so, too.
He's great in this movie, but he's barely in this movie. Like, I don't know why it needs to be Gary Oldman.
You know what I think it is? I think they're trying to subvert expectations by grabbing up the guy who played Gordon in a somewhat Gordon-ish role. Who then is willing to kill himself and others in order to bring down the apes because he doesn't trust them. I think it's an attempt at reverse typecasting, which is amusing because he usually plays bad guys.
No, Gordon is the reverse typecasting for Gary Oldman. That's
exactly right. But he hasn't been in very many billion-dollar movies, so
it's true. I think it's interesting that one of the main themes of this movie is something that shows up a lot in Bad Things. One of the biggest complaints about a bad movie, it's all over sitcoms. Most sitcoms are built around this: miscommunication, or no communication.
That's right.
The major crux of this film happens not because people aren't communicating, but because they can't. Once everything gets out of control, there is no point where you can just go, well, if they just stopped and talked about it.
That's right.
But it's complete manipulation of communication. I think that's a really interesting idea. Given how often we use it poorly, where it's just, well, these two aren't communicating and therefore conflict. Here, that is the point.
And that's brought to the forefront given that the thing the humans are trying to get at the beginning is communication.
Mm-hmm. It's getting in contact with any other human.
The device to get the ball rolling is not just turning on the lights, but trying to make contact with other settlements, which we managed to do by the end.
Yeah.
They make sure that we know that there are other settlements.
That's part of what setting up the war is that, there's a military group coming.
Yeah.
They're, so far away.
I'm really interested to see how much of a scope we get in war, because so far we've had 2 movies in one city.
Yeah.
Even though this feels like it's a much larger scope because it doesn't look like San Francisco anymore.
The big assumption is that at some point we have to go to New York to get to the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, sure. And I would be really surprised if, now that you say that, if that's not where some of the next one takes place. And I haven't looked into it any farther than watching the trailer. But that line in the trailer, like if we don't do this and this, it will become a planet of apes. Like we've got to be more setting up the actual Planet of the Apes stuff.
Yeah.
I would assume when we get there.
I think one of the most interesting choices in this is that Caesar is the main character. Because there's an argument to be made that Caesar's the main character of the first one, but he's not. James Franco is the main character of the first one. He's there from the beginning, and Caesar kind of takes over, but James Franco's there through the entire thing.
They both have character arcs. You could make a case for dual antagonists, certainly.
But
he has he has to make the major choice at the end.
That's true. But this is 100% Caesar's movie.
Yeah.
He is the main character. Well, and it's interesting because I thought this while I was watching it.
It's a heavy as the crown
Yeah.
story.
Well, and I thought this while I was watching it. I was like, oh. Because I believe when I saw the trailer, I assumed we were further out and that Caesar wasn't necessarily that the ape in charge wasn't necessarily the Caesar from the first film. Like, I thought we were further away from civilization.
Oh, okay.
Timeline-wise, based on the trailer.
It's still Andy Serkis, though. That would have been weird. If he was playing
Andy Serkis could play anything.
Well, no, I know, but I mean, like you said as we were watching it, it looks a little bit like him in the face.
Yeah, which is weird. I don't remember that in the first movie, but I also wasn't as familiar with Andy Serkis as a person.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go look at some of his other, go back to Lord of the Rings and see if I can find Andy Serkis in there.
How do you feel about that slow burn?
About
just the idea that we're not jumping hundreds of years ahead. That we're seeing the beginnings of the civilization, and I mean, considering the fact that it's called Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, maybe we should have expected that.
I think it works. I think the next movie needs to get us there. I think 4 movies would be pushing it.
I mean, it kind of just depends on what we do with it. I like all the cultural details are so interesting to me.
Well, okay.
That I'm liking all the world building we're doing.
The problem is, or it's the human aspect that needs to be gone by next movie.
Sure.
If 4 is just literally building the civilization, that's fine.
That could be interesting.
But the conflict with the humans, I feel like if it goes for another movie, it could.
I absolutely agree with that.
It could be stretched too far.
Maybe we see them enslaved by then.
Yeah. At the end of. And that's the thing, is that this is not an uplifting movie with an uplifting ending.
No, certainly not.
And the first one wasn't either.
It's bleak. I mean, it's got its optimism, but it's got a bleak tone all the way through.
The first movie, I feel like, is more optimistic, especially with the ending. Like, we know what that's leading to, but in the context of Rise, it feels more heroic and uplifting. He's going off on his own and he's free now.
Well, that's the thing, is that arguably, you get both sides of it, but arguably the original series was the Planet of the Apes from the humans' perspective, and this is the beginning of it from the apes.
And that could be really.
It feels more optimistic and uplifting or whatever because you're seeing it from Caesar's point of view.
And that could be really interesting if we ever get to a remake of the original film where it's you've now lived in this society and now the human is the alien. Force. That could be really interesting. But I didn't realize, I guess, that Caesar was going to be the main character of these movies. I assume he's the main character of the next one as well. And so I was processing that as I was watching the film, I was like, oh, Caesar's the main character. I already think we're doing. This movie starts with the apes, and it's finding a human that is the, like, oh no. Like, that's not usually how you do this movie.
Yeah.
You would start with the humans, and then they would stumble upon the apes. So when Caesar died, I was like, or gets shot, I was like, oh man, like, I guess he's not the main character for these movies. Like, maybe we'll follow his son. Like, I really thought he was dead.
There's a lot of things that make this feel like a Lion King situation real early on. You know, Koba has some scar in him,
literally,
and yeah, and then at the end he's real Scar, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean his motivations are a little bit different because he's not really obsessed with power in the same way.
No,
you
he
know
just kind of hates the
because
humans.
That's the foundation of that is a vendetta.
Yeah, well,
and so he just doesn't like that Caesar is, and of course remember that Caesar saved him in that last movie, so he owes him something.
Well, and it's interesting because he's not like battle hungry. Like, it's not like anytime he's in the encampment he's getting into fights and things. There's a character kind of similar to him in the Tim Burton one.
Okay.
And he's just a loose cannon. Like, he can't stop himself from arguing with people and trying to pick fights. And here, it is just the humans.
Yeah, he respects his people until...
He could be an alright leader if there were no humans, theoretically.
Yeah.
It is not that he is just a... He's not...
Well, but he's so damaged I have a hard time buying that, but he certainly...
I'm not saying he should be leading them, but
he wouldn't
he's
go
not,
off on his people just because he wants violence.
He's not the generic military stereotype that we put in most science fiction films. He is not just battle crazy and can't wait to start, fighting people. It's specifically humans.
And I'm glad we had the setup film for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm really glad that we got to see all that happen to him.
And it's not just a new character added, then we've been given backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this all feels natural and like the only possible place it could have gone, and yet it's able to surprise you in places, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
It does feel by the end like this is the only way it could have worked out, but in the best way possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of feels like...
We're playing out history that's played out before, right? I mean, this is like how wars happen sometimes, and so it feels like we're in. And obviously, Caesar's a real obvious name. You know what I mean? But we're seeing some ancient history playing out again.
Well, and it's interesting because it's drama in a very classical sense. It's almost Shakespearean in the way it plays. None of this is particularly new. Like, this all feels real. Been there, done. That's the wrong way to say it. But like, there's nothing in this.
It's familiar.
Yeah, but it's also something that we don't really do anymore. It's a kind of storytelling we don't really do anymore, and it's not stories that we tell a lot, at least not this way. But it's done. It's done well and it's done right.
It's one of those like timeless stories that I think is maybe important to do well.
Yeah.
Every few years.
It's real classical. It's real mythic. So it doesn't feel like, as opposed to, say, the literal story of Hercules, which we keep trying to retell, and we've never really been able to do that.
I mean, we do this story, the friends that turn on each other because they're just too different, and their backgrounds, or their nature, however you look at it, will not allow them, or they won't make the choice to one of them, to do the right thing. Depending on which side you're on and what you think is the right thing, and we do that with superheroes all the time.
I think it's interesting that it doesn't feel been there, done that.
Yeah,
I think it's just because it feels classical. It doesn't feel repetitious. It's just, this is a kind of story.
And I like seeing it back in the Regal setting again.
It makes me curious what they will do with the third one as far as ape politics go.
Yeah,
and I'm a little worried that third one will have more cardboard cutout human characters.
Yeah, me too.
Because that's something this movie subverts entirely, except for one guy, who I thought...
The guy with the guns?
Yeah, the guy with the guns.
Yeah.
He was a little... I was so happy he died so early, because I was real worried I was going to put up with that guy for the whole movie.
Yeah.
He's a real archetype. He he's not what Koba is. Like, that guy is always picking fights. That guy is really combative.
Yeah, he should have been in an Alien or a Predator movie.
Yeah, yeah. He would have fit right in Starship Troopers, but he's the only one that I feel like is that kind of cardboard cutout. Like, look, he's the bad guy a-hole that is going to ruin everything for everyone, but no one actually agrees with.
I just somewhat question how necessary that was. I mean, on the one hand, you kind of...
I don't think it was necessary at all. Well, I think Koba could have just gone to the human settlement and found guns.
Well, and that's where I was going. I see both sides to it, because on the one hand, I see why you would want, like, kind of paranoid human characters who hate the apes because they remind them of the virus. Like, it's not logical, but there would be people that would be like that.
Sure, but why would you send that guy up to the ape settlement?
That's true. I guess the easy argument is you only have so many soldiers. But what I was gonna say is, yeah, you could just have Koba go looking for the weapons because he's trying to create discord, and he's trying to make Caesar not trust the humans at all. But he doesn't know exactly what to look for. He doesn't know what. I mean, I'm sure he would know a gun if he saw a gun. Yeah. But the fact that guy brought a gun gives him the idea in the first place.
And we do need someone to blame for Caesar's death.
Yeah.
Although that's never resolved. Like, once they find out that...
I guess my point is, he's sowing discontent. I think we buy more because a human screwed up early on in the first place and was already making Caesar say, I don't trust... There's a really important scene where Caesar says, I don't trust you, and I think you kind of need it for that, but I wish it didn't feel as plot devicey and that guy wasn't so one-dimensional.
Yeah. We don't ever resolve the thing with that guy, probably because he's unlikable and no one liked him. But once we find out that he didn't murder Caesar, no one is like, so where is he? I mean, we know he's dead, but they don't know.
Those are the consequences of being a jerk face, okay? No one likes you, no one wants to be your friend, and if you're in a post-apocalyptic future where you're having a hard time even making power happen, no one's taking roll call. It'll be 5 years before somebody goes, wait a minute, that guy used to live here. You remember that guy? Yeah, I don't care either.
Well, we're all probably half dead at that point, but yeah, no, I really like this. I think this is easily better than the first one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, weird to compare them. I mean, the first
they're very different films.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one, Rise is great.
It is great, but it is real analogous. And I know I bring this metaphor or this analogy up all the time, but it's real analogous, I think, to Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I mean, they're almost different genres of movies, and they need to be to because the first movie is a character development establishing movie to get us to this in like the best way I've ever seen that done.
Well, and it feels like
because I wasn't watching that going, okay, let's just get to the next movie. Like, I get why we need this, but it didn't feel hand-holdy, like the audience wouldn't understand what was going on in the next movie. It's that we needed to establish this guy and create him. And that's a really good father-son story, and then it becomes a war epic with father-son stories in it.
Well, and it feels like this is the movie they wanted to make. Not that they didn't want to make Rise, but it feels like they made Rise so they could make this movie.
Yeah, of course.
Which is good because Rise had the potential of being, we just want to start this franchise, we made a really good one, okay, what do we do now? Mm-hmm. It feels like they had some kind of idea of where this would go from Rise.
Well, and we need to see the fully established human world before we get to this. I mean, yeah, it looks like our world. We know what that looks like already. Mm-hmm. But, like, we need to establish for this, in the context of this world, the kind of human sensibilities we already understand, mm-hmm. In order to draw some of the parallels we draw in this movie. I love how it builds on this on that first.
Yeah, movie. I'm not saying you could start with this or they should start with this. I do think this might be a stronger film of the two.
Sure, I mean, I'm sure they would agree, and I'm sure
they're symbiotic.
I'm sure they're exactly. I'm sure when they made this, part of their goal was, well, it has to be a better movie, a better, like it's a grander film. It's about it's about more things. It's more complex. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
like it had to be that. What you think about going back to the house? I loved that.
Yeah, well, and because I'd forgotten that the first film took place in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So when we went back to the house, I'm like, how did we get here? Oh, right, Golden Gate Bridge. This is where the first movie took place. I do have a question about time, though.
Yeah.
I don't have a sense of how long it takes to get from the city to the ape encampment, and how much time is passing while the people are there. Because we're given a ticking clock. We're given 3 days. I don't know how much time passes, and Koba goes back and forth like 3 times. And I don't know how far away it is.
Yeah, and we need a truck when the humans do it, but part of that's to transport Caesar when he's hurt. But you're right. I mean, like, it is a city. It would take a while to trek that. But if you're an ape and you can find things to jump around on, you could get there faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's at least not on foot like you or I would be on foot.
Yeah,
he could get there quicker.
I'm just unclear about the timetable and things like that.
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
But no, I really like the house. I really like that scene with James Franco is either deleted footage or he came back just to shoot that, which is really cool if that is.
Yeah, I hesitate to say that because it's been a while since I've seen that first movie, and I think that might have actually been in that.
Is it? I don't remember.
Or it might have been shot for a montage. I'm not... It's been too long since I've seen that. But I do remember in the theater thinking, oh, they went back and shot new footage, so maybe they did. Maybe that is what they did. And I had seen that movie that day, so if I'm right about my thought process from then, they did get him back to do that. So that's kind of cool.
I think that's cool. I like that.
You notice how we use the symbol in the window?
Yes, and I didn't get it until we saw the window. I was like, oh, that's the thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that it's doing that. We don't do this as much anymore with franchises, but where each movie's kind of a different cast.
Yeah.
We used to do that more, and it works sometimes. It doesn't work other times.
And you have that grounding figure in The King so far.
Yeah, Caesar is the through line.
If he doesn't die in war, I'll be real surprised.
Yeah.
And I do think they'll try to make it all about his son, and I hope that guy's... I hope he ends up being an interesting character.
He might be played by Andy Serkis, too.
Yeah, I don't know. Or he might be played by the guy that's playing him.
I think that might be Andy Serkis, is what I mean. I think Andy Serkis might be the son as well. I don't know. Andy Serkis is so good at mocap.
No, like, I know. I mean, I haven't looked into it, so I have no idea. But I mean, he certainly has like a voice and stuff. And moving forward, I expect and we should talk about the language thing. When we get to war, I expect complete sentences.
At least by the end of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much time has passed.
Yeah.
I mean, we could jump far enough ahead.
Yeah, if it's 10, 15 years, they should be...
more of like an old man, and yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that we might see a full-grown version of his son in war.
Yeah.
Again, I've not looked too much into that, so this might be information people have, but I want to go in as blind as I can.
Yeah.
Besides that trailer, which I couldn't have missed because I've gone to enough movies this year. But anyway, how do you feel about the choice to not go into full-blown English? I thought that was a really good idea.
No, that was a great idea. I was surprised by it because I just assumed we say no in the first movie. In the second movie, everyone's just going to be speaking English. No, it's great. It feels
so believable.
Yeah, and even throughout this film, they start speaking more. At least Koba and Caesar.
Caesar, yeah.
So yeah, no, I like that. I like that they're evolving it. It's not rushing it. This doesn't have the feel of, we've talked about so many movies that have this now. The James Bond films, the first two, I guess, Dark Knight. Where it's like, okay, we did the movie that's the origin story. And then we do the second movie, and it's like, oh, we're at the end of the origin story. And then we do the third movie, it's like, okay, we're finally to the end of the origin story. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like
this feels like this is the story.
Yes, that's exactly.
That's the thing, is like, I am anticipating Planet of the Apes, but not in the sense of like, I can't wait for it to finally be the thing I'm waiting for it to be. And then the main reason for that, I think, is, well, just because... Some of it is we started so early that it already felt like, okay, it might be a million years before we ever get to that part. It's like present day, and we're creating the Planet of the Apes out of our world already. But I think more of it is because, and then also the fact that the impetus for it and some of the ideas are not exactly the same as they are in Planet of the Apes, so it feels like its own thing already. I mean, these are not...
Well, yeah, because the idea in Planet of the Apes, at least the original one, it changes by conquest, but the idea in the original one is that we just blew ourselves all up with nuclear bombs, and the apes kind of rose up out of that, maybe altered by radiation.
Exactly.
This is already... Like, in the original Planet of the Apes film, theoretically, there is no war between humans and apes. Apes just take over.
Yeah, and now we've got... And I mean, like, we saw all kinds of problems in the apes, obviously, that reflect ourselves in that movie, but I really like that the apes are partially responsible for what's happening now, also, and so, I mean, we are, like, the moral of the story is the apes and the humans are the same. They gotta find a way to get along. I mean, it's exactly the same thing as humans and mutants, except...
And the sad thing is they're not going to.
Yeah.
Because if we stay on course... This never has a happy ending.
No.
I mean, if we completely stay on course, the whole planet gets blown up, but,
I hope that happens, and then we don't have anything else afterwards, but...
By then... No, here's what's gonna happen. When we get to the movie, that's the first movie, and then doing Beneath of the Planet of the Apes, we'll just do Charlton Heston like we did Tarkin. We'll just have Charlton Heston come back and reprise his role.
But as a CG creature.
But as a CG creature.
And man, we get the apes so right that by then, maybe it'll be even better than Tarkin.
Oh, they got this weird fake human with all these real apes running around.
What? That's great. I mean, you still can make an ape look more realistic than a human because because you have fur and stuff to mask some of the lines and things. And also they're not talking as much. But
their mouths move so incredible.
And we should talk about that. But what I was going to say a minute ago is I think a lot of the reason that you're not waiting for it to finally turn into the thing that you came to see in the first place is because it's not about a singular character that is still in his infancy from the original franchise. Like, Caesar was a character in the later Planet of the Apes, but this is a new, ground-up, different character that has some traits in common. I read about that right before we did the show, because I could not remember if he was even... Because I have not watched past Beneath. But
Conquest is really good.
But what I was going to say is...
you never watch Battle?
That's the only character so far that that really has much to do with the original. So it's not like James Bond where you're like, okay, when's he going to become James Bond? Like the planet is kind of a character, and so we are waiting for it to become the Planet of the Apes. But that was like the initial contract the films made with us is these are going to be prequels in the best way possible, where we're leading up to that, and we're going to try to make you invested in it so that what you want to see is the creation of it in the first place. Like, I am so invested in this that if we never get to Planet, or it takes like a really long time to get there, I'm not disappointed. Or
if these movies end...
Or if that's the last thing.
Yeah, or if these movies end after 4 or 5, and at the end of it, we're just at the beginning of Planet of the Apes, and we never actually do that story.
Just like the humans show up.
Yeah.
I mean, we did send them off in the rocket.
We did send them off in the rocket and Rise.
So they set that up if they want to do it.
It's true.
And I feel... Doesn't it feel like we've got a lot of foresight with this? These guys feel like they know where they're going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just like I said with Rise, and I didn't get that sense with Rise. Not that I'm not discrediting Rise, but nothing in Rise necessarily made me think we know exactly where we don't. It didn't feel, or I didn't feel like we know exactly where we're going.
Yeah.
It felt like, we sent the guy up in the rocket. Like we'll do something next. We planted a couple of seeds for what we might do next.
Right away where they were going, but this doesn't. There's nothing retroactive in this where you have to ignore something from the first movie in order for it to work on its own. Like already the first 2 movies are very, like you said, symbiotic. They're companion pieces. You can't have one without the other.
But yeah, I think it's really good. It's nice that Apes is making money. Because these are gorgeous looking films that you couldn't make without being a high budget film.
Yeah, I saw something when I looked this budget up that I haven't seen very often, which is it said. Wikipedia says the budget for this movie is somewhere between $170 and $230 million. I don't see that very often. They don't know exactly how much it costs to make. It was somewhere between that. Yeah,
that's almost Avengers money.
Yeah. And that's incredible because the first movie did... I mean, it did really well. It did like $430, and I didn't realize it did that well, but this doubled it. This made $700. Which is
fantastic. It's nice that smart,
I don't hear people
well-written
talk about
science
it.
fiction. I don't either.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was just doing well enough to keep going, and that it was kind of a thing that people were seeing, but
which is
not
insane with
talking
how
about.
much it cost.
But, like, it's doing close to Transformers numbers, and...
You know, I thought about Transformers while I was watching this movie. This is what I wanted the Transformers movies to be. Don't tell me I can't watch a Transformers movie without, or with minimal humans, where I'm just watching robots. I watched a movie with minimal humans where I'm just watching apes. Don't tell me I can't have that.
It's a movie you couldn't have made 10 years before.
No.
It looks amazing. And, Eric, this is the kind of thing that makes it difficult for me to handle poorly integrated CGI sometimes, because... Like here it is. You've got all these scenes that are nothing but like dozens of CG creatures, mocap certainly. But sometimes there's nothing real on the screen or nothing real but jungle. I'm sure we shot most of this actually in the jungle, in the woods. Like I'm sure most of the landscape is real. But there are. I mean, you can obviously tell that the apes have to be a visual effect, but I'm not taken out by it. It always feels like I'm looking at it, and importantly, it feels like I'm looking at real performances. I mean, Koba has a real specific set of mannerisms and facial tics.
And when he switches it, when he's fooling the guys,
that's great.
It's fantastic.
Because he understands what they think he is, which is part of the tragedy.
Well, he also. Because a lot of what he's doing, I don't associate necessarily... When he comes back the second time, the first time he's being like a circus monkey.
Right.
But the second time, he's hanging out like he's just a guy. Like, he's almost mimicking what he thinks humans are like, where he's like hanging out and he's like hitting the guy and he's drinking the beer.
Because now they know that they're intelligent, so he is going to mimic humans to make them think that he's intelligent, but he doesn't think they are. So and there's all that talk about...
And that scene's great.
I like that we're already talking about how, as the apes think that they're better than humans, because, of course, that's the... Like Caesar has gotten past that. That's his character arc by the end of the movie. Clearly, there's going to be a new rhetoric.
Yeah.
Because at some point, that society is going to get to a place where it decides that it's not just morally better than humans, but it's more intellectual than humans. That human beings.
If we continue on track to something resembling,
surely that's where they're going.
Koba with the gun is a striking image.
Yeah, it sure is.
I don't know what makes it so striking, but anytime he has a gun, it's like it cuts like right through you, like. Yeah, there's just something really striking about it.
It's twisted. There's something wrong about that.
Yeah, especially...
And I think it's because you find yourself understanding their plight and siding with them to some degree, where you don't want to see them act like us.
Especially the... When Caesar looks down and you can tell that only Caesar sees him and he shoots him, like... Some of that's just beautiful.
I think it's impressive that it's not a... I don't find it to be a real preachy anti-gun movie, but there's commentary about that.
No, it's just an anti-human movie, which is good because that's tracking with the first movie.
But again, I don't think it's anti-human because it shows the best and the worst.
No, absolutely.
And the apes have all the same problems we do.
The original film, much less. Rod Serling hated us all, and he was right. But
all right.
You tell me Planet of the Apes is wrong. Or Twilight Zone, or anything Rod Serling ever wrote. This is a little off topic. I'm way more cool with this director taking over Batman, if that comes to pass. I don't know if he directed the first one. I think he directed Rise as well.
I think so, yeah.
And I didn't see that in Rise. I think Rise is a good movie, but that's not exactly... I didn't feel like the guy I wanted for my Batman movie. Seeing this
guy's right.
I'm like, oh, yeah, you can totally do a great Batman movie.
The man knows how to shoot action, and it's got to be a lot harder to shoot action with this many visual effects, where you have characters that aren't actually... that aren't there or just mocap.
No, this film in particular feels comparable to the Nolan Batman trilogy. In taking something that's a what do you call it? The big idea, but that's not the word I was looking for.
I'm sorry, I'm not
high
sure.
concept.
Yeah,
Taking a high concept kind of thing and doing a really grounded, serious, intelligent story is a really smart movie.
Well, and we don't make these kinds of epics, or at least we don't make a lot of them that are, you know, this epic in scope and still this like smart and thought provoking. And it's kind of cool to see a movie where it feels like there are a bazillion extras, but they're all CG creatures that you buy as real.
Yeah. No, it's a real impressive movie. It's weird that it made the money it made. It's as good as it is, and I don't hear people talking about this like I hear people talking about The Dark Knight.
Yeah, and they
should be.
From the very beginning, this team has seemed really like sure of itself and not afraid to take risks, and they're not trying to make things that are too accessible. Like they're just making
the best movies they can make.
Yeah.
Which is real refreshing and nice to see.
Which I want to think is the reason that they're successful. I mean, I think some of the audience that's seeing this are audiences that don't go to these kind of movies.
Yeah. Well, and
that would make sense as an explanation for why you and I aren't hearing it talked about as much in our circles. But
well, and that's a great way to. I
bet you see a lot of older people in the theater for these movies.
Oh, probably. But this is how you should reboot something. If you're if you are going to cash in on nostalgia and name recognition, you should use that power to make something worth seeing.
And to make something that's not what it was before, but still holds the spirit and flavor enough of it. And that's tough. I mean, that's a difficult balancing act.
Yeah.
I would love to see this kind of treatment for something I've never ever seen before also.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But that ship seems to have long since sailed.
Well, not entirely. I mean, it's not like we don't get original things. I'm just saying that it's disproportionate.
We don't get original things on this scope and scale, though.
Not yet.
Not
I'd like to think that we could get more, but
yeah. Not right now, anyways. We could cycle back around to doing that, but right now, everything's something. Everything with this kind of money behind it.
Last point I'm going to make is I hadn't thought of this. I think I saw this a couple times before. Until this viewing, I think this might be one of Giacchino's best scores. He's got a theme that really sticks with you in this, and all the like war drum stuff. I haven't looked into it. I hope he's the composer for the next one, because he does this war stuff really well, and he's the guy to get because he's done so much of this kind of like tribal, island woodsy music because of Lost and stuff. Like he's just exactly the right guy to go to for a thing like that. And of course he did Jurassic World and. But yeah, I've been seeing franchises that he's worked on being taken over by other people because he's so stretched thin right now. That I hope he did the next one, but
yeah.
But anyway, well, Eric is feeling it, and
you know what we're seeing next time. We'll watch next time, which will be real soon because Alien Covenant comes out next week.
In a couple weeks, yeah. I guess it's just next week now.
It's next week now.
But yeah, I can't wait for War. I'm just watching this again, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of losing my mind. Can't wait for War. Anyway. Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it. Looking forward to reading your comments. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
We'll see you next time, folks.